as one holy family of light, to cherish one another, to pray with one another, to lift each other into the light, to experience the light as our divine inheritance. When we call on the light, it is calling on the Holy Spirit, the memory of our Creator, the memory of our Creator's will, and that perfect sublime place that we know as heaven. The old book says, "Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all else will be added unto you." And yet, where we come from is singular, non-dualistic. It is oneness, perfect oneness. And where we experience ourselves to be has become dualistic, has become shades of light and dark, in and out, yes and no, ones and zeros, yin and yang. So let us now call on the light of the oneness. And this oneness is the perfect reflection of our Creator. It is the perfect reflection of true love. Ultimately, we were never lost. We never fell from grace. We were never separated. But we all long so deeply for that experience of no separation, that experience of perfect oneness, perfect love, to be perfectly held and known and loved unconditionally, to be cherished by our Creator and by each other, to know that exquisite love, and to know no separation, no pain, no sorrow, no longing. So we ask for the angels of the Most High to show us this perfect state of grace, to show us what it is to go without need, what it is to have all the longings of our heart and soul answered, to know the true heart of God, to know love without opposite.
Are we live?
We are live. We are live.
And alive. We are live and alive.
There we go. Yeah. So, let us talk about the antagonist. The antagonist. So we do a lot of work with light and darkness, calling in the light, eviscerating the darkness, washing away the darkness, lighting the darkness with the light. We use those words a lot. And some of us are really into that dualism. It serves a purpose. It has works for us. And then sometimes you go, well, wait a second. Maybe it's all just love. Maybe it's all good. Maybe it's all light. And both are right. And the way to understand that, we have a Miracles Course member, his name is John, who during a call today threw out Mr. Worm. Well, hold on, I gotta look up the title here. What's our title here? Mr. Slugworth.
Slugworth, yeah.
Mr. Slugworth, the antagonist. So let's do this. Let's see what this is. Okay, we're gonna say darkness. The darkness that we're constantly talking about. Assuaging the darkness, lighting the darkness, eviscerating the darkness, lighting the world, bringing the light. Okay, that's dualism. And in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, okay, it could also be called the antagonist. The darkness could be called the antagonist. So the antagonist is always the one who's sort of fighting you. You're trying to ascend to your highest expression, and the antagonist is constantly fighting you or tempting you to fight it, or tempting you to engage with it in a lower, let's say, vibration or lower expression of your true self. And so trolls are great antagonists. And what a troll does is seduces you into conflict with it, and it and be them. You know, they're generally people sitting behind computers, generally, but you can be a real life troll. Doing it in a classroom or in a work setting or in any relationship. But what the archetype of the troll is that we're talking about here is one who seduces you into an entanglement in some sort of conflict with them. And you can be in a beautiful place, feeling love, feeling light, feeling wholeness, and then someone picks a fight with you, picks an argument with you, and it pulls you down to a lower expression of yourself. Now you're angry. Now you're frustrated. Now you're seething. Now you're resentful. Now you're feeling all sort of the darker sides, and we call it darkness, but the darker sides of dualism, and there's that power versus force spectrum. I can't remember the guy's name, but this, it starts with like the lowest emotional vibratory state is like shame and guilt and fear, and these are like the lower states. And then once you cross the threshold of pride, you move up into the upper realms of the positive states, which would be reason, and then love, and then joy, and so higher and higher expressions. The ultimate expression, the highest vibration. I don't know if it says it in I bet some. David Hawkins, thank you, Twalia, for saying that. So the highest expression, I can't remember what it is. If any of you know, you can just chat it in, and I'll see it. But I'm going to go with awe. Okay, so I think when you're experiencing awe, that is the reverence for your creator. That is the feeling of melting into the oneness. Awe is the most exalted emotional state, because what awe signifies, it also comes with the goosebumps, the tingles, the spirit chills, the angel bumps, the frisson, the aesthetic chills, whatever you call it. It's that feeling of the light, the feeling of the Holy Spirit, the feeling of the holy light. When you feel that, you are entering into that state of awe, that state of grace. And that state is the like nearest your emotions and physiology can. That's like the highest sort of vibratory state of your emotions and physiology. And what that reflects is ultimately, and this is clinical science, that what awe ultimately is the replacement of your top concept. So your ego, whatever runs your mind, there's a top concept. There's like the ultimate concept. That's the self. It is the self, is the sort of pinnacle concept on a huge hierarchy of ideas. So to understand like letters and words, like, so I'll just do this real quick for you, just so you can understand what I mean by top concept. the top, let's say take the top concept of a book. So that's the top concept. It's a book. Inside that book are chapters. Those are smaller concepts in the book. Inside the chapters are paragraphs. Those are smaller concepts in the book. Inside the paragraphs are sentences. Inside the sentences are words. Inside the words are letters. Inside the letters are shapes. So you see this hierarchy, okay? So there's only 26 letters, but those 26 letters can be put into so many different combinations. You can have millions of books, right? Endless books. So every idea that we hold in our minds, every thought we have is like a letter. It's like it's a very basic building block of our psyches. But the top concept ultimately is your sense of self. What are you? What are you? And when you're experiencing awe, what you are experiencing, and this is back to the science, what you're experiencing is that very pinnacle concept of what you are being shifted. You are now melting into the oneness. Your sense of separate self is melting, and the oneness is assuming more of that top concept of yourself. This is what enlightenment is when you are fully immersed in the oneness, you're fully immersed in the light, where that that salient top concept of the separate self has been dissolved completely in the oneness. That is enlightenment. And enlightenment has the word light in it. So what would ignorance be? It could be like considered the opposite of enlightenment. It could be considered darkness. But that's a dualistic framework because, again, we're messing with the and it's Chelsea's turn to jump in here because this is her thing. So we'll let Chelsea jump in here with the
this has been my wait a second, why are we ragging on the dark all the time?
Yeah.
You turn out the lights, you got the night sky, there's dark in all kinds of ways, which doesn't need to bring in negative connotation. And so maybe another framework for ignorance is obscurity, right? You're just obscured from the light. Like in darkness, there's just darkness. As you bring in the light, if you have a clear night sky, you're going to see the moon, and that light will be able to get through. If you've got a cloudy night, the light of the moon isn't going to get through those clouds. So there's the difference between darkness and obscurity. And it's just a matter of recognizing that neither of those experiences, darkness nor obscurity, are inherently evil. It's not like something trying to get you as much as it is our own fears within us. It's like our obscurity from seeing ourselves as the one that have us just trapped in our own fear. And it feels like something outside of us. It feels like something that must be evil, that must be an opposing force that's dragging us down. But really, it's the fear within ourselves, which obscures us from our oneness and creates the feeling, the perception, the idea of duality, of separateness. And since I must be the good, because no villain ever sees themselves as the villain, they are always justified to themselves, even if only to themselves and maybe their moms in their actions. So if I'm good, then that thing outside of me must be evil. And that just kind of gets perpetuated, and it just creates an experience of duality where we're light workers, but we're fighting the dark. And honestly, it doesn't even make sense to my mind. How would you fight the dark? Like you go outside, it's dark at night, and you're just like, what is the dark? So help me understand, because you seem really comfortable, and I also really feel that you're not limited. When you use language like the dark that's pulling us down, I don't feel actually a limitation in it, although I get hung up on the words a little bit. So maybe help me soothe out what you're meaning when you say that.
So the darkness is the antagonist, and I don't know whether it was Phil or John or Michelle or you, one of y'all came up with the word antagonist, and that was, I thought, a brilliant introduction because I think it was John. I'm going to give John credit unless it was Phil. I apologize if it was you, Phil. But anyway, the antagonist, perfect word, because That's what we're talking about when we're talking about the darkness. Is this antagonist? Now, is the antagonist evil? That's an interesting question we should explore. But first, before we go there, let's just say we're going to put on the antagonist all of the shadow, all of the darkness, everything that we consider negative. We're putting that on the antagonist. And then the antagonist comes along and, like a troll, will attempt to seduce you into being less of your light, into being less of your true self, into being less one with your truest integrity. And now, that could be like you always hear about, being seduced by the devil or the darkness or demons or a deal with the devil and things like that, right? So there's that sort of archetype of, okay, this antagonist has a devilish component to it or a darkness component to it. But nothing can be fully dark because it couldn't be animated. Light is what animates anything. Like pure abyss darkness is just the absence of all light and therefore the absence of any animism, because light is the animism, I believe. And we can go back to that, Chelsea, if you disagree. But what was beautiful today is the antagonist was given a name, and it was Mr. Slugworth. And when you realize that the antagonist is like Mr. Slugworth, you realize that the antagonist also works for the oneness, works for the ultimate light. And so Mr. Slugworth is a character from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And in the story, if you don't remember it, there was this character who worked in the factory, and he seemed to be running some sort of conspiracy to...
Garrett, I think you're freezing a little bit, and I don't know if it's just for me.
Okay, well, we'll let people chat in if it's not just for you. So the antagonist, Mr. Slugworth, is someone who tries to seduce Charlie into doing something that's beneath him, that's beneath his highest expression. His highest expression would be ultimately to get through this chocolate factory tour with his integrity. And he doesn't realize that the tour is has a lot more meaning than he even comes into it, because no one's being told that you inherit the chocolate factory if you successfully make your way through the tour. All he knows is he's going about his life like we all do. We don't know what our inheritance is, or our potential inheritance is, and our potential inheritance is the kingdom of heaven. We don't go through life realizing that is our potential inheritance, and the antagonist will constantly show up in our life to seduce us away from our ultimate potential inheritance and to get us to choose something that is beneath our ultimate inheritance. And so Mr. Slugworth was trying to seduce Charlie into doing something that violated his integrity, such that he would forsake his inheritance of the whole chocolate factory, which is a symbol for the kingdom of heaven. So Mr. Slugworth being the, what do we call it now? The
antagonist.
The antagonist, which is kind of similar word to like the Antichrist, or, he's like a devil character, right? Or whatever. But at the end, after all is said and done, and Charlie manages not to be seduced by Mr. Slugworth's offers, he inherits the kingdom and learns that Mr. Slugworth worked for the kingdom. Mr. Slugworth's job was to test Charlie and his worthiness of inheriting the kingdom. And so this is what the antagonist does. This is what the darkness does, is it tests us and tests our worthiness of inheriting the greater kingdom and the greater kingdom is the perfect reflection. Heaven on earth is like the perfect reflection of the kingdom of heaven, and the kingdom of heaven is oneness. Heaven on earth is still stuck in duality, but it's such a perfect, beautiful reflection of the kingdom of heaven that you can just kind of slip into that oneness without sacrificing anything. It's like you've reached the frequency of heaven and then you can step into oneness and abandon all duality from that place. So I hope that makes some sense, but so what it brings us to is that the darkness as we describe it, which is the antagonist, is not ultimately evil in the sense that even the darkness works on behalf of creation. Like, it is part of us. It is part of, at very least, it is a reflection of our forgetting the oneness of our Creator. Okay, so let's riff on that, Chelsea. That I just wanted to have those pieces in there before we keep going.
No, this is great. It's like when you play with the jigsaw puzzle and you dump all the pieces out and you start putting them together and like seeing where everything fits. Mm-hmm. And what's coming up for me is it's like even to say that the antagonist is testing us, right? Like, I don't know how many times, like I grew up going to church and hearing that, you're being tested. You're being tested. Feels like something outside of you. And when I look at it, if I look at it from a non-dualistic perspective, then I have to acknowledge in doing so that the antagonist is an expression of me. And that in a sense, it is like me desiring to know myself more. And so it's like, well, how does that work out? Because when a troll shows up to you, you certainly don't think like, I wanted this person to be in front of me. I called this in. And some people do go that far, and without going down there, that could be a whole other conversation. I have just this real in the moment example of like when my internet was breaking just now. It turns out it was my personal internet, not yours. That was all good. And the call dropped for me. It's like, as it was starting to break, this story automatically comes in my head of like, man, this must be a good lesson because somehow like the enemy is wanting. And I was like, wait a second, what's that story I just made up? That this has anything to do with some outside force. And then it turns out I have my Wi-Fi on and the Wi-Fi is weak. It's like, we're so quick to make meaning of something. We're so quick to cast somebody in a particular character or a situation in a character and give it our attention, right? Like, so first we cast that person or thing as that's the antagonist. And then we focus on how that person is the antagonist. Meanwhile, we could just focus elsewhere and not have, and there will be times, I think, when people come into our experience. And again, I'm happy to like be corrected on this. I'm not saying I've got it sorted out.
Well, I love where you went with it. I love where you went, where your signal died, and you're like, oh, okay, this, what was the actual words you used? This, you're being tested, or
like somehow there's like enemy interference, right?
The enemy, right? Yes, the enemy. So that's another great word, is the antagonist, the enemy. Okay, so here's the thing: the enemy lives inside you. The enemy is you, ultimately, and all the external antagonists are just a reflection of that enemy for you. So you can wrestle with the enemy, so you can know the enemy. But what is the antagonist ultimately is that you are purely, truly, completely holy. And therefore, even that part of you that you would regard as the enemy is the rejected pieces of yourself that come back and say, you can't ignore me. You can't just reject me and walk away. I'm part of you. I am you, like, and then we go, oh, wait a second. I'm all trying to be love and light, and you're not seeming like that at all. But what that enemy or antagonist is doing is saying, yes, because you haven't resolved your own inner choice about whether you are going to have integrity with regards to this Charlie and the Chocolate Factory tour, or whether my seductive offer will pull you away from your integrity. Like, our entire existence is one of coming to know ourselves and evolving to the point where we can re-embrace that oneness, where if you're Buddhist, it would be like embracing Buddhahood. But to embrace Buddhahood, it could happen instantly if your whole being was just like, yeah, I'm just at one. I no longer need any separation. And then, in a more sort of Christian words, like the kingdom of heaven, it's the same thing. It's the kingdom of heaven is that oneness. But how do you get into the kingdom of heaven? Is you have to relinquish everything that is not in alignment with heaven. And everything that's not in alignment with heaven is anything that can tempt you away from heaven. So when you go and you see a beautiful sunset, and you just look at this majesty, this amazing, beautiful sunset, how long do you sit there in that state of awe and wonder with the sunset before you reach for your phone or a distraction? And whatever that is that pulls you away from those beautiful moments, and it could be a moment with a child, it can be a moment with a lover, it can be a moment with an old friend. And like how you're having a beautiful, rich conversation with someone, and then somehow the conversation shifts to something not as alive, not as enlightened. It's like there's always, at every given instant, that choice between the truest reflection of heaven in your life and then something lesser than. And that temptation to go to the lesser than stuff is the temptation of the antagonist. And the antagonist is there within us to show us where we're not completely in allegiance to oneness or heaven, where we still might be seduced by or curious about something that is less than heaven, something that is less than perfect grace, something that is less than perfect oneness. And jump in, Chelsea, because this is one of those topics that kind of goes round and round. So
oh, so many things are jumping up for me though, that it's like I really want to stay tuned and listen, because there's so many places that we could go here. But one that was really coming up for me in terms of this oneness, right? It's integrity, integral, being in integrity. Like it's just a state of being whole and complete. And that would be like to be in that oneness perspective. And so an antagonist pulling us out of that is just pulling us into that space of duality, right? And it makes me think of this video I saw recently, like of our brains, right? Most of us don't think about, because we're so used to them working together in some way. We've just grown up with our left brain and our right brain. We understand they have different kind of functions and whatnot, but they kind of have a way of working together. But for some people, there have been studies done, or people who have a division between the left and the right hemispheres of the brain. And then what actually happens in those cases, it's like having two different personalities that no longer have the ability to communicate with one another. And so whereas the left side of your brain, now I get this twisted up, but hold on, the left side of your brain, which controls the right side of your body, the right side of your brain, which controls the left side of your body, you might, I believe it is, okay, somebody can correct me on this, so I'm not going to say which is which, but I know one side of our brain will deal with language, with the one who talks about who we think we are. I am this, I am that, and it makes meaning of everything. It deals with all the stories and the logic and everything. The other side of our brain is dealing more with our abstract experiences. This is our feelings, this is our emotions, this is our movement, and that's our body. And if you watch somebody who has this division between the two, you can ask them a question on one side of their brain. You can put it so that one eye is seeing the question for that corresponding part of the brain and say, what do you see? And then you can put an object on the other side, and the one that has the question cannot see the object. It cannot see it because it doesn't have language for it. It's abstract. And so it just makes something up when it's put on the spot. And so it starts getting me to think like, what if this duality it really is just the two sides of our brains, or two aspects of us, one seen and one unseen. And the one unseen becomes the antagonist, because it's offering us something. The two hands can work in opposition to one another. It's offering us something that we don't understand. And so we make meaning out of it. And it just seems like it must be the bad one, because we've forgotten that it's actually connected to us. And then on the other side of that experience, you look at people who journey with plant medicines, and they experience a sudden merging of the blood-brain barrier where suddenly there's a oneness between the two brains. And that is what brings us into that experience of, I am one with everything.
Yeah. So the being the one with everything, definitely, when you're working towards the higher realms, either through psychedelics or prayer or meditation, that feeling of oneness is so joyous. And I like what you said about like you can, even just with the two hemispheres of your brain, you can be fighting yourself, and it's and it might, and then be beyond hemispheres. It's been said that we all have like multiple personas or personalities that are all sort of trying to work themselves out in our consciousness, and so we are at the mercy of this tussle of separation until we come into that oneness. But I guess the real question that brought us into this conversation is, when you're working towards the higher aspirations, when Charlie, and he doesn't even know it, he's just on his wonderful factory tour. He doesn't realize that the entire factory is being offered to him. All he knows, he's going about his life. He's got this sort of special moment. He's on a mystical journey, if you will. And while he's on this journey, he's being tempted to step out of his integrity. And that's all of us. And to say being tempted to step out of your integrity is being tempted to step out of your light, to being tempted to step out of your oneness. So that oneness that Chelsea just described, that we can achieve, as soon as the trip is over, we step out of that experience of oneness and we're back in the little bedroom where that grandpa lays in bed too much or whatever. Like, you're back in this sort of like fallen state. And so if Charlie, during his factory tour, was allowed himself to be tempted out of the oneness that he was about to inherit, he'd be back down to that crappy little apartment that he shared with his 12 family members, all in one bed. Like that is the separated squalor, if you will, that we all can go to. And we know that place where shit's not working, where you're struggling, where you're being forced to compromise. You're not even like working your souls. Like, we all have our soul's calling. And when we're in our soul's calling, it's like we're closer to the oneness. We're closer to the, man, it's really tricky to talk about like oneness. And then, so oneness and light, I find, are like, they're like right next to each other. Like, when you are in the perfect oneness, it's all light. It's all.
But Garrett,
yeah.
Can I interrupt you for a second to ask, how can you have oneness and have that be aligned with the light, but not include the dark in the oneness?
Yeah. So this is semantics, but let's equate light and love. Okay. So there's light. But then
does that mean that darkness is
fear?
The absence of love, I suppose.
Yeah. So fear would be the absence of love. Darkness would be the absence of light. Are we okay with those labels? Okay. So then oneness would just be pure love and unencumbered, unopposed love. Like, it's just all love. It's just all light. There's no antagonist anymore. It's just this perfect light, love, oneness. Is that okay? Does that work for the oneness?
Well, I was following you, but I'm also seeing here, John's chiming in, and acknowledging that fear can sometimes be an act of self-protection, so not necessarily the absence of love. Could we say then perhaps the perceived absence of love, that love is always ever present?
Mm-hmm. I love that. The perceived absence of love. The blocks to the awareness of love. Fear is a block to the awareness of love. So the awareness of oneness is our ultimate state, when you're just completely aware of all the love, light, oneness available to us. Now you're completely aware of heaven. But in our dualistic state, now you've got these patches of fear, darkness, whatever, and it gives contrast of things. You can't have pictures and bodies and all these, all the accoutrements of living a physical life. You can't have, as you so aptly described, Chelsea, you cannot navigate a physical world where there is no darkness, where there is no contrast. You need the contrast to inhabit a physical body and a physical universe. So it could be said that the kingdom of heaven, being just pure oneness, light, love, could be boring to our egos, at very least, if not some part of our souls that wants the great adventure of navigating a physical world where there's tension and stuff to tangle with and stuff to work with and stuff to mold and
And how do we come back to remembering ourselves and knowing ourselves as love if we've never experienced ourselves as anything less than pure love? And if we've never experienced loving somebody when it was challenging to love them, if we've never experienced looking on someone with compassion, knowing ourselves as one with them, even as we can't quite understand them, but somehow searching to find the meeting point, like, then how do we know ourselves as love? So maybe that the perception that there could ever be anything less than pure love is our free will to see that love is all that there is in all the ways it shows up, even when it looks like a troll on the internet or a troll in your life, that somehow I might not understand it from my perspective in this moment, but I feel that love is all there is, and that's my free will choice. So I'm going to let this person go out of my experience, or I'm going to fixate on that, this is proof that love is not all there is, that there are bad things out there, that there are people who want to pull you down. And then what we end up doing is we give more energy to that. We give more attention to that. It becomes part of our life experience rather than just letting it fall away. And I don't know, I don't need to give a meaning to it. Maybe that's out of my perception, whatever triggered that person to say those comments, to be the way that they were, to be asking for more attention than I feel I have the ability to give. I don't know, and I maybe don't need to know. I just need to know that life has got them too, and that I don't have to be the one to do anything except for just know that I'm love, and that I'm either here to support you as love or to lovingly watch you go on your own way.
Let's address John's contest with fear. So it is arguable that in a survival state of kill or be killed, eat or be eaten, we're talking about primordial earth, that fear has a usefulness to it. That if you're not afraid of the predators, you're likely to get eaten. Now, early hominids or apes, they would travel in packs, and the young male apes would sort of surround the pack, and they were arguably the most fearless of their little troops, because they'd be the ones that got eaten first. But as long as just one of them got eaten, the rest of the tribe could keep moving along, because the predator would have gotten its meal. So now this is the source of that primordial fear that we're going to get eaten, we're going to get killed. And the less of that fear you have, the more likely you're going to be the one to be the meal for the predator. And that's why 18-year-old young men are the ones that get sent to war. Well, not the only reason, but it's one of the corollaries is that these are the ones who are least afraid of running out in front of gunfire, and they like the idea of going out, taking guns, blowing shit up. Like, it kind of their testosterone or aggression outweighs their fear of going to war, and they, out of all sort of the different expressions of human consciousness, that sort of young male expression of enjoying aggression and combat and fights and trolling and all of that, it's like it outweighs their fear of it, and so you can get a whole generation of young men to go fight a senseless war, just purely based on their biology, that they're in that sort of biological state where their testosterone is driving their choices to the point that taking a bullet is small price to pay for a little excitement and to get out of the house, So, now why I bring all this up is because fear, although a seemingly useful tool in survivalship, isn't necessary. So when you're young, and I've used this example before, but let's just go back to it. When you're young, you just run out into the street. In fact, I was talking to my brother today, and he was having to really fight with his young son, who just wanted to run out into the highway. Like, it's just such a cool place to go. Let's go take my scooter on the highway. Like, that's where he wanted to be. And I'm hearing him on the phone, like, his son is screaming at him, "Let me go. I want to go play in traffic." Now, it's because he doesn't have any fear. One way of getting that young child to stop running into traffic is to teach him to be afraid of the traffic. And then you can trust that if he's afraid enough of running into traffic, he won't do it. Now, when you're an adult and you contemplate crossing the road, you don't, I would hope you don't well up with anxiety and fear about, oh my gosh, I was taught to be afraid of traffic when I was 2 years old or 3 years old, and I'm still afraid of traffic. I would hope that you just say, okay, no, I know how to manage this. I know what a crosswalk is. I know how to look both ways. I'm not afraid, but I also know how to survive. And so that's the difference. Like, you can still survive without fear. You can still make good, wise choices that play to your survival without the use of that tool of fear. But primordial fear, I think, stems more from the primordial fall. That is the primordial fall into the darkness that we all, as one creation, have inherited. Like, that there is this, maybe it started with the Big Bang. Who knows what it started? I mean, the Big Bang would be the first separation, if you will, at least in this universe. And so that explosion, that separation, is ruled by entropy, which arguably is kind of, if I was going to take a law of physics that's most in alignment with fear, I would put entropy, excuse me, at the top of the list for that alignment. Entropy loves separation and chaos. We're getting all over the place. And honestly,
Garrett, can I just share with you something that John just brought in, which I was like, I love this perspective. Because he's talking about, it's like if we're walking on the edge of a cliff, and generally most of us are kind of aware of, like, okay, I'm at the edge of the cliff. It brings a certain sense of aliveness, right? To look down and see the cliff, and maybe you're Machu Picchu and like you just have to, because that's all the space you have. There's an aliveness to it. But at the same time, it's like if we start to slip, that's where the fear comes in. And what he's saying is like in its original sense. So John, thank you for bringing this in, this perspective. It's like the awakener to awareness. It's like here we are alert and aware. And there's that, that moment that feels like fear that awakens us back into our awareness. And so it can be very useful. And if we go too far into it, and even in this conversation, you can say like, I think you were starting to say like, oh, we've gone like way off, when maybe really what we've just done is gone way far into the exploration of what is fear, when really it's just that moment. It's just that moment. And then we come back to the awareness of oneness. And that if you're really purely in a state of just love and surrender and oneness, you don't even feel that. You're just, that's when you're placing your foot in exactly the right step. It's like you're just absolutely walking in faith. Oh, Garrett, I think you're muted.
Thank you. John, since you're such a integral part of this conversation, you literally brought up Mr. Slugworth and probably coined the term the antagonist. Feel free to unmute yourself. I'd love to just have your voice in this dialogue. Because I think what we're doing here, this has been something that Chelsea has wrestled with regards to my light and dark language since the beginning, and God bless her, she's non-judgmental enough to say, with all you're going on about light and darkness, I still get where you're coming from, and I'm still on board. I love that about you, Chelsea. But I think it's also be great for anyone who also is going through that and possibly doesn't have the patience Chelsea has, that we get really clear about what do we mean by the darkness? Why do we keep working to assuage the darkness? Why do we, are we judging darkness? Like, that's an interesting question. Isn't judgment an expression of the darkness? And are we judging darkness? So there's a lot of canoodly stuff here. And I think ultimately, go ahead.
I want to bring in something just to say, like, part of why it's like I see, even when you speak about the dark, where you're coming from is because I actually feel where you're coming from, regardless of the words that you use. And I don't have a trigger against the words, because my life experience has led me to, I actually only can hold the light and can really be available when I've actually loved and accepted the parts of me that I was calling very dark. Like, I had to do that work with myself on a very personal journey to love my own shadows as just something outside of my awareness, and to bring it back into my awareness and into a fuller sense of self. And I so appreciate the experiences that I've had. You can call it shadow work. Now the way I work with darkness is I just feel it as the void. And sometimes it's like a day like today. I was so just excited and busy and creating and on call after call all across the world. Literally, I had calls in Africa today, and I had calls on the West Coast of the US and everywhere. And it's exciting to me and thrilling. And in the same moment, I get so high on the energy. And you could say that's not fear, but it's taking me out of that balance. That what I really needed to do in that moment was actually, I needed the dark. And for me, that looked like I needed to lie down and rest. I needed to just surrender and remember that amongst all those little particles of light, I am mostly empty space. I am mostly the void. I am mostly the nothingness, the vessel which allows the light to come in to focus and into being. And from that place of coming back to the emptiness, then I have a clear opportunity to call in the light. And I did this just today. It was like I was so frantic and feeling buzzy that I actually invited in the void, laid down in what do you call that? The Shavasana, the death pose, until I felt all of that energy just dissipate and come back to stillness. And then there was the sun hiding behind these clouds. And I could really just invite in the light from a still perspective. So when we speak about the dark as it's something evil, it's just contrary to my experience. That's what I mean. But it's not wrong.
Let's talk about evil. My definition for evil is the idea of separation. So, or even belief in the idea of separation. We could take it even a little step further. We could take another step for allegiance to the idea of separation. So I think there are different ways of viewing, like every single word we use here, everyone has their own definition for. I tend to stick with Course in Miracles definitions, just because that's what I grew up with. And so in A Course in Miracles, it deals with both duality and the singularity or oneness. But what it often says is, like, you can't write a book about the oneness. But what you can do is you can, this course doesn't endeavor to teach you the meaning of love, but it endeavors to remove your blocks to the awareness of love's presence. So the blocks.
But maybe the next, because you're talking about A Course in Miracles, which is powerful stuff.
Yep.
But maybe, and this is a miracles course,
yep.
And maybe we're like that, but 2.0, the next gen.
Yeah.
And where instead of removing the blocks to love, our real purpose here is to see that there is only love, to like look from that place, that knowing that we're speaking from the authority of our own experience. And that is the closest that I can get to speaking from the oneness, is to speak to what I know, what I've experienced, and to allow for another to share their experience with me. And that is the closest I can get in language to allowing the oneness. And at the same time, to have that perspective that even when you're sharing, even when we have different ways of looking at the same word, to feel at the essence that we are one.
Yeah.
And that we are united.
Oh yeah. So if we were just if we were just in that essence that just we are one, we are united, like completely.
Well, wait, can we just be there now? Like, can you express it, what you're going to say? Can you express it? Like, can we just, aren't we there now?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, want to sing?
Yeah.
Because that's where I feel like we're...
Okay, but I want to throw this out as the song that we start with, I am.
I am, yeah.
And then just let it go from there. I am.
Let's start with a song, I am. Wonderful. Okay. There we go.
It delights me that your response is let's sing. I love that. Thank you.
Well,
that's one of the things I love about you, Garrett.
Yeah. If we're going to hash stuff out, that's the duality. We want oneness, let's sing.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see here. I think this is a good one. Is this the right one? I'm trying to remember which one we had. We had this wonderful track that we sang with before, and I don't remember which one it was. Let's do this one.
The one, the one, the one, the one. I am the one, the one, the one. I am.
I am you and you are me and we are one together. I am you and you are me and we are one together.
I am,
And we are one with our Creator. I am with you.
I am one and two.
I am in love with you.
I am love, if it's true.
We are love together.
I am one together in love.
What is love?
I am love.
I am love. I am love. I am love. I am love.
You are love.
I am as God created me.
You are God and God's creation too. You are one and two.
All right.
That was fun. I'm so delighted. This is whatever that was that you were saying is at the highest end of the spectrum. I'm pretty close to that.
See, now that's it, right? So that's the one. That's it. That's the oneness. That's the oneness. That's it. Maybe we belong there, but we decided to talk about the not oneness, which is the duality.
Well, we always know how we can get back there, though, right?
Yeah. And
we just sing.
Empress probably just says, just joined. Are they on Jam Kazam? And believe it or not, we are not. We are like, and Chelsea's on the other side of the country, and there is major latency, and yet somehow Spirit still helped us pull that off. But we aim to get on Jam Kazam so that we can really sing with timing.
Jam Kazam Zam.
Yeah. So I don't think oneness can really be talked about easily. Poetry approaches it, song.
Because poetry doesn't seek to be the truth.
Yeah.
It seeks to put you into the experience. It seeks to evoke within you your own experience of oneness.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't try to pin it down. It doesn't try to dissect it. It doesn't try to be accurate.
Interject.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, right on. Huh. So, what's still left dangling, Chelsea, in terms of how I explain the use of the concept of darkness as a friend to help us.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
I come to seek with you again.
Because the world is... I don't actually know the words, so we can either make them up or you could sing them. What is it? Will you sing the song to me, Garrett, please?
Let's look up the words. We'll do it. Let's do the song together. Well, this is going to show you how we're not on Jam Kazam because we will be all over the place with these lyrics. Oh man.
I'm loving this though,
What about the Disturbed version of that song? Some heavy metal guys who brought that.
Oh, that was beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to just listen to it? You want to just play it and listen to it so that we can just appreciate, play the Disturbed version.
Okay.
And if we still want to sing it, we can do that. But I want to just listen to the words.
Okay. Yeah. hold on a second. It's going to take a minute and a half to get it loaded up right.
Oh.
Send you the link in the chat.
Wait.
Yeah, John sent you the link.
Yeah. I have to.
And just as you're queuing this up, I'm like, can I listen from that place really as darkness as my friend? And you know what? Whatever happens from today, you might continue to, as we pray, ask that the darkness be receded and the light
let me tell you a story.
interceded.
Let me tell you a story. So
Please do.
I have a story for you. This is the at the inception of Miracles course, and we're going to do the prayer today that I was taught during the story. I was out in my cathedral under the stars, and I was in an exalted state of prayer with Archangel Saint Michael and with another angel, and asking them, how do we reach the people who belong in this Miracles course? And what I was shown is a process which we will do. It is that process that we use where we lift souls up into the light. And I first was shown that with just one soul. And then I said, okay, well, that was nice. Great experience. And I feel much more deeply in love and connected with the soul. And I feel like I actually did a service for this soul. So I thought that was great. And I was like, that kind of felt like an exorcism too. And Saint Michael was like, you're not wrong. Excuse me. But anyway,
Is this my story? Can you tell it like once upon a time?
Once upon a time?
Uh-huh. Once upon a time, there was a Garrett, and Garrett
Yes.
is in the
cathedral under the stars, the field. Yes.
and
You want like from the very
Archangel
beginning?
Michael says to Garrett,
Well, he says, I'm asking, I'm all business. I'm like, okay, how do we?
No, present tense.
Yeah.
Like, when you're telling a story, it's happening present tense.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Okay. So I'm all business and I'm trying to find out, how we invite y'all to the Miracles course. And St. Michael says, well, why don't you do this exercise where with this, he shows me the soul that I'm to work with. And said, why don't you do this exercise where you see the light in the soul and you amplify that light? And I go, that's not my question, but okay.
Wait, did he actually say that, or did he show you the exercise?
It was like combination of the both. It's like, it's weird. Like the way that St. Michael works with me, he's in my head. Like he's in there. So it's like,
So he like just gave you the blueprint. Like you could just get the download.
yeah, just I'm being basically guided to do this, and this has nothing to do with my particular question in my mind. I'm just going, I'm here to find out how to invite you all to this Miracles course. And instead I'm being shown that what you need to do right now is love this particular soul with all your heart, see the light in them. Actually, we first started with see the light in them, which was that enough was a stretch. And then it was like, no, now as I saw the light increase in the soul, the love I felt for the soul was reawakened to an extent that I had no idea. And then I was just lifting the soul up into the light. And upon completing that, I staggered away from the experience, physically exhausted, going like, what did we just do there? Because it was profoundly powerful and drenched in tears and sweat and like, and then I was like, that was like an exorcism. And then St. Michael was like, yeah, you're not wrong. And then I go, well, what did that have to do with this Miracles course? And St. Michael goes, well, come on, guys. And it was all you. You're going to do this for them too. And I was like, whoa. darkness. Now I'm afraid of the darkness, right? Like as a spiritual healer, like know that if you get entangled in somebody's stuff when you're doing like spiritual healings, like that stuff can stick to you, like that can be like, so I've seen like spiritual healers who like they're afflicted with whatever healings they've managed to pull, whatever darkness or demon or afflictions out of others and give them respite from those. But next thing you know, they're like stuck to them, and this is a common occurrence in a lot of sort of spiritual healing modalities. So I'm just like, whoa. I don't know these souls, and I'm not about ready to exercise a dozen or 3 dozen souls right now, because that's about the number that I could feel coming on and actually getting on my shoulders and like getting on me. And I was like, whoa. And I'm like, St. Michael. And I knew St. Michael had this exorcism prayer that like called for protection. And I'm like, I don't know the prayer. I know it's been like over a year and I still haven't learned the stupid prayer because I didn't think I wanted to have anything to do with the darkness. Like this prayer is saying basically, St. Michael, protect me from the wicked snares of evil and cast the devil into the abyss and all this kind of stuff. And I was just like, this is not, I'm like, I'm not into this thing.
I wouldn't want anything to do with that prayer either.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm for a year I had nothing. I was like, that is like, if you go and Google St. Michael the Archangel and you look at what the primary prayers are to him, it's like, basically you're asking this dude to go to battle for you and fight the darkness, and I was just like, I was kind of coming more from where you typically come from, Chelsea. It's like, it's, it's all good. It's all light. You just stay in affinity with the light. We don't need to like get mired in the darkness. But then when you get dozens of souls coming at you to have you exercise them, and I'm just like, maybe I should be know this prayer. It's like, I don't know what kind of shit's gonna come out of this. So St. Michael assured me that my intention and invitation to him to protect me was sufficient, that we're good. So you don't need to know the words to a particular prayer to like something like, hocus pocus magic incantations. It's just pure intention. So anyway, we did this process all together, and I lifted all of you into the light. And I tell you, I can squat a lot of weight. I can I put that barbell on my back, and 500 pounds I can do. I couldn't do all of you. Like you all came on, and I collapsed down. Like it was like heavy, and it took me the entire 6 minutes to get all the way up and push you all up into the light. So that was like one thing, and that's the physical sensation I experienced during this. It was like, now granted, I'm loaded on mushrooms, so weird things can happen when you're loaded on mushrooms, but but like my physical experience was that it took all of my physical and spiritual might to lift the few dozen original souls of this miracles course up into the light. And we did that, and then I was like, whew, okay. I'm breathing heavy. I'm sweating bullets. I'm weeping. Like, it's just like, I'm like, all right. To make a long story short, that happened at least a half dozen times. Like, so then St. Michael goes, okay, next wave. Like that was just the first wave. Now, next wave. The next wave was many more dozens of souls. That it got to the point where then there was another subsequent wave after that, which was hundreds of souls. I was flat out on my, like, it crushed me. Like all I could do is I was just on the ground, face down, like just doing everything to just lift a little bit off. It was crazy town. I get it. It was crazy town, but it was incredibly real. We got to the end of this. At the end of every, in fact, what I'm going to do for you, yes, today we're going to fix this little thing. You're going to hear
What's
at
broken?
the end of, no, it's, that's a good question. At the end of this track that was auto played for me on YouTube. Like, I didn't pick this track, this music track that we do when we're lifting souls up into the light. I didn't pick it. Like, St. Michael gave me that track. Like, basically what I do is when I'm tripping balls on mushrooms, like, there's some sort of weird psychic connection that you achieve with your physical reality where like all of these synchronicities and miracles and serendipities happen. And it's like your mind is no longer trapped in your head, and it like can make the spirits or your mind or something can make stuff happen in the world. And one of the easiest places for it to make stuff really good happen is just going to YouTube. I pick like whatever song I'm guided to choose on YouTube, and then the next song that YouTube chooses, often if I'm really loaded, is chosen by the archangels. They choose the next song and the song after that. So this song, M83 Wait, was given as this process, and I'm so loaded that I can't even change. Like I'm not changing the music. Like, well, no, I'm not. I'm loaded, but I'm not. What's happening is I'm recalling it better now. What's happening is that song was chosen, and St. Michael's in charge of the music, and and I go, okay, thank God we're done with that now. We just did like all you, and we lifted y'all into the light, and I'm like, thank God we're done with it. And then the song would start again. Like he kept going the same song over and over through this process. Like, and I'm not in control of this, and I'm like, how the hell is this song played, 5-6 times in a row? By the time it went to 5 or 6 times in a row, I'm like, there's something. I'm gonna look at my phone. I'm gonna find out something's broken, like that. That this song is somehow, there's like a setting that just says repeat the song or something like that. Because it seems probabilistically impossible that YouTube would auto suggest the same song 6 times in a row. Like it would just like, oh, the next thing you'd like to listen to is the same song. So, but it was like that every time the song played again. St. Michael called in an order of magnitude more souls. So first it was 1, then it was a few dozen, then it was like many, many dozen or hundreds, then it was like thousands, and it just kept increasing in number. At the end of this song, there is a sound that I've cut out from the work we do because I find the sound unsettling, and I associate the sound with the darkness. And as I understood the sound to be during this experience, that sound was the Antichrist saying, I'm not done with you. Like you might have won this battle, but I'm still here. And so there's this, you will hear this sound. In fact, I can play you just the sound. I think I can. Here's the sound. So the song would be well over. I'm resting. I'm like trying to like, oh, that's weird. Why did it not play that? Oh, because we're on the wrong thing. Here we go. I'll play the sound. So I'm resting and I'm recovering. And then this sound, like, and I'll go right from the very end so you can just sort of see how, right? So it's like, and you're like, oh, that was so amazing. That was so beautiful. And you're weeping and you're exhausted and you're sweating and you're just like picking yourself up off it's dusting myself off. And I'm like, thank God. And then there'd be that sound. And it was kind of this menacing, feedback sound. And it was like, and that was the sound of the beast to me. That was the sound of the Antichrist, the devil. I mean, I've gone through a number of exorcisms before this point, and so I sort of know his spirit in a way. And like that was like, okay, that's the spirit of the antagonist. That's the antagonist right there. He's still there. He's still with us, and we're not done with him, right? So like that, and so that went on like 6 times, 6 go-arounds. The final lifting of souls into the light of this one, I didn't know it was the final. I was shown by St. Mike, there was this big dark cloud in the distance. It was like a storm cloud. It was a ginormous cloud of darkness, and it represented all the darkness in our world as this giant like storm coming. And and I'll get present tense. And so I see this giant storm cloud, and every time that sound played, I would turn it, and I know it's coming from there. I can feel that sound. Yeah, so I could feel that sound, this sound right here, was the sound coming from that darkness. It would just be that, and I'd be like, and it'd just be like, the storm is still coming, and you're not done yet. And so finally, during this session, playing it again, and now I am being guided by Saint Michael to lift all the millions or more souls in this darkness. I mean, it's countless. I couldn't count them. And most of these souls, every generation of souls, every group of souls had their own thing. Like there was a message to them, a healing that needed to be done, that they all shared. Like they all shared the same, we need this particular type of healing. And so this group of souls were the suicides, the school shooters, the overdoses, the despair. It was like deep, deep, deep darkness. Mass shooters, and they were all sort of grouped with. So there was this deep, dark despair with them, and the despair was being held in by this figure, which, as I know him, is like the Antichrist. And Saint Michael, so at this point, I'm going to try to keep it present. At this point, I'm being told now, in fact, I'm invited to include the Antichrist as a soul that we're lifting. And so hundreds of thousands or millions of souls are all coming in to be lifted into the light, and the Antichrist is one of them. And we lift the Antichrist and these souls up into the light. It is the most harrowing experience, like doing this, especially with the Antichrist, but he was like glowing and like really, I mean, it's just an intense experience with him and them. And when we finally did it, I'm just staggering away from that experience, and I'm waiting for that sound to play. And it doesn't play. And not only does it doesn't play, but a new song comes on. And it's a song from the Antichrist. As like, kind of like, it's been nice playing with you. Like, and we're done here. So that was weird, because that sound is in the track. So that means that. But
what was that song that the Antichrist played?
I have it somewhere on my, somewhere on my phone. I'd have to dig it up, and we could probably like, yeah, let's dig it up. Let's see if we can. This could get okay. We're gonna put a time limit on this, because I know everyone's like, we're straining everybody's attention span here. But I do believe I saved it in a playlist.
Or my invitation is maybe we find that one another time, because I'd like to hear it. Or we could hear Hello Darkness, My Old Friend. Either one.
Oh yeah. That's a good one.
Oh, are we recording?
Are we recording?
Are we? Michelle just asked, are we?
Oh, we forgot to record. I thought I actually hit record on.
Oh no, we have not been recording.
Oh shit, I'm not recording anyway. Well,
now you're recording.
Now we're recording. We recorded the audio and we're streaming. So technically we're still recording on. Thank you, Michelle. Technically we're still recording on YouTube. We just won't be able to. We're just not recording everywhere. But now we're recording. So when we go private. Yeah. So Yeah, we'll do the Hello Darkness, my old friend. That's what we downloaded. Where is that? But why do I say that? Why did I bring all that? Because ultimately, even with Saint Michael, who in the mythology is the one who cast Satan into the abyss, into hell. The real Saint Michael the Archangel that I've experienced is devoted to the light and lifting into the light so much that we included Satan in this process, and Satan was moved by it.
Isn't Michael both the one that says, Satan, it's time for you to go, and Satan, we're ready now to lift you up into the light? We have enough. I have developed the capacity to even witness you and lift you into the light. I'm ready now. Yeah.
And I get, Chelsea, that where you're coming from with all this is that's the new devotion, the new
it's just the turn of the tide. And the tide may turn again in our conscious evolution, but where we are right now that's where I'm coming from.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for hearing me out and allowing this conversation to go on this long, and for entertaining. It could be easy to not question, like, hey, this is appropriate for me to say that the dark is pulling me down, because I know what I mean. And so thank you for having this conversation with me. Yeah,
well, I think it's a worthy conversation to be had, and it clarifies our language and our comprehension and gets us all on the same page. Like I live in my own mind, and everyone else lives in their own mind. So you're all living in your own sort of mind that has its own definition of words and terms. And if I'm saying words that mean one thing to me and mean something completely different to you, it does make it difficult to be in that state of communion together, because we're speaking different languages, and literally saying things that don't, like, what I might be saying that I think I mean is not what others are hearing, and so therefore it does like conflate, it does make communication difficult.
It creates dissonance.
Thing, you don't mind?
Yeah, go ahead, John.
The one thing that I thought might add to it is when you were lifting those souls up, when you achieved the goal, how did that feel?
Exalted. It felt like it's like winning a prize fight. It's like that. It's that Rocky moment, yo, Adrian, I did it. It's like that kind of that feeling of just being on top of the world and having achieved something great. And meanwhile, I'm just in a field. I'm just in a field with my earbuds in. And if anyone saw me, they're like, what is this lunatic up to in this field? But it felt like winning a championship boxing match or, MMA fight. Like, that's what it felt like.
And what feelings did you get back from them?
What's that?
And what feelings did you get back from them, the ones that you lifted?
The souls. Oh, just tremendous gratitude. Like, it was like in this prayer, like, there is the adage, I got you, brother. I got you, sister. There's complete, utter devotion to every soul that we do this prayer with and for. And I can go through the litany. There was a different prayer for each and every soul group that just would kind of come out, and it became like a mantra. So that was also very, very surprising that each soul group had words that needed to kind of symbolize their deepest struggle, or the struggle that we were helping them with. So, I don't know if I can find those. I didn't expect to be talking about this at such length, but I do have what's probably like 6 different incantations that were 6 different mantras, or what would you call it? Affirmations even, like one of the soul groups, thy will be done was what one soul group really needed to know in that lifting of light. Thy will be done, thy will be done. So that was said emphatically over and over again as I was lifting that group into the light. And then there was another soul group that he is with you, which is sort of knowing that that they're not alone. They're my terms, so they tend to be a bit Christian in flavor, but here they are. So "Thy will be done" was the first wave. That's probably all of you. "He is with you" was the second wave. That one included my mother. I felt my mother's soul in that group. "I've got you" was the third wave. Fourth wave was, now this is my words, okay? And so my word for, let's just be clear here, Christ in my inner language means the oneness that Chelsea and I have been talking about. Like, there's like two onenesses. There's the oneness of our creator, and then there's the oneness of the creation, like what our creator created, what we are. And that oneness is Christ in my mind. So like some people call it Christ consciousness or whatever. Take it a step further, like the Course in Miracles definition of Christ, not Jesus Christ, but Christ is like the one creation of the Most High. So this next wave got believe in Christ through me, and this was, and then the next wave after that had me get on my stomach. I was laying face down on the ground, and they all piled on my back, and they were the people who have a lot of wealth and power in the world, and they were stepping on my back, and they were walking over me. They were walking on me. I was their doormat, and their prayer for them was, "You are forgiven. You are forgiven. You are forgiven." That they know they're walking on people like doormats, and they know that in their hearts and in their souls, and what holds them pinned in that place is the guilt, the deep inner guilt of doing that, and it polarizes them. They can't get through that guilt, so they keep doing that. They keep walking on people. And so my prayer for them was, "You can walk all over me. You are forgiven. You are forgiven." Then the next soul group was, my wife was in this next soul group, and it was, "You are safe in God. You are safe in God. You are safe in God." Then the next soul group included Marianne Williamson. She was in this soul group, and Trump was in the soul group. And this soul group, the message for them is, "Be the Christ, save the world. Be the Christ, save the world." These were a bunch of sort of high-flying media darlings who had a lot of attention and think of themselves as like, they live out that sort of, they could call it like a Christ complex, where you just like want all the attention and to do all the things. At the same time, like what they needed to hear is like, okay, so you want that? Do it. Be the Christ, save the world, sacrifice yourself. Be the Christ, save the world. So that was their message. And then the one that included Satan, the final one, and this was also so many suicides, mass shootings, like just like people really railing against all of humanity, was, "The light of Christ be with you. The light of Christ be with you." And that was, I remember saying that directly to Satan, "The light of Christ be with you. The light of Christ be with you." So, yeah. So David said, "Be the Christ" is a pretty tricky thing to say to Christians. Right. But I think for Christians, you could say, "Be Christ-like," and they might get it, I think that's a pretty...
Well, something that's occurring to me right now,
yeah,
is Christ reminds me a lot of the word christened. And when something or someone is christened, you are crowned. And another way of looking at that is like when your crown is open and allowing in the light, you are christened in your Christ christened consciousness in this opened, illuminated crown. And so maybe that's just another way of looking at it, as being in your crowned, in your royal consciousness. And, one of my personal practices has been to really study the Lord's Prayer in Aramaic. And today, just happened to be today, I was looking, and not really just looking at, but meditating with, in a sound and vibrational body prayer, the line, "Thy kingdom come," which in Aramaic is "Te te malkutach." Te te malkutach. Te is come. So we're really just emphasizing twice, come, like really. Te te. And malkutach is actually a feminine. The word itself is feminine gendered. And what it speaks to, you could say kingdom, sure, you could say queendom, but what it actually speaks to is the vision. The vision, like bring that, your vision of that oneness perspective into me, in through me, firstly in my beingness inside, and then externally in the way that I live out. And so if you have a society of people who are in that christened Christ consciousness, calling them the kingdom, queendom of that knowing, then they are walking around as kings and queens, knowing themselves in that way. And then we truly are not only embodying heaven on earth, but we are experiencing heaven on earth in a collective way. And so, when you go back to even what Jesus of Nazareth, who we commonly just call Christ, we forget that he was Jesus the Christ. Jesus of Nazareth, who became Jesus the Christ, the christened, the crowned one. If we go back to his culture, it was always the understanding of I am both just speaking to the inside and the outside. It is both. I am both. Heaven on earth is a vibration. It's an experience I have. And it is something that I must actually pick up my hands and my feet to create in the world.
I love that. That's great, Chelsea. That's great. All right. What are we feeling here? Do we want to play "Hello Darkness, My Old Friend"? Is that what people are feeling?
Yes. Please don't leave me hanging. I got "Hello Darkness" blue balls over here, so please.
Jeez. Okay. Here we go. Let me just. Oh, here we go. I think this is it. Here.
My old friend, I've come to talk with you again, because a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping, and the vision that was planted in my brain still remain within the sound of silence. In restless dreams I walked alone, narrow streets of cobblestone, neath the halo of a street lamp. I turned my collar to the cold and damp, when my eyes were stabbed by the flash of a neon light that split the night and touched the sound of silence. And in the naked light I saw 10,000 people, maybe more. People talking without speaking. People hearing without listening. People writing songs and voices never shared. And no one dared disturb the sound
All right. Do you want to hear the one from Satan? Yes. Here it is. Now remember, this is after a healing with Satan, so he was healed a little bit. It's kind of like a surrender or something, or like a... Yeah, this is you heard this right, Phil. This was the song that Satan appeared to play after we did the healing with all of the suicides and mass shooters, and Satan himself. So we lifted all of them up into the light. And what was particularly amazing and weird was every time that track repeated itself of lifting souls into the light, we would get that one grating feedback sound at the end of it. And then this time we lifted all of those souls into light. So this has happened. This is the 6th or 7th time the song is played with that grating feedback sound embedded right at the end of it. It's part of the track on YouTube. This time we lifted all the souls who were suicides, and part of this great cloud of darkness that Satan was amidst. He was like, it was kind of like this was his stronghold, was through the suicides. That's where Satan had anchored himself. And I'll get the name and artist so you can look up the lyrics because they're profound. Hold on a second here. It is Bon Iver, Roslyn, Roslyn, and that particular track is and Saint Vincent. So the actual track that was played on YouTube was Bon Iver ampersand Saint Vincent dash Roslyn. So I think Roslyn is the name of the song. I think Saint Vincent is an artist that was collaborating with Bon Iver. I would look up the lyrics right now, because the lyrics are profound. So now we had just gone through all these healings that culminated in the lifting in the light of all these suicides, mass shooters, sort of super, super darkness, like almost like a conviction with the darkness. Like it was, these souls are heavily attached to the darkness. And then we lift them into the light. And at the end of that track of the lifting into the light track, which we'll all play again, that M83 Wait song, I was expecting to hear that sort of dark, menacing feedback that comes in a few seconds after the song stops playing. And it didn't play, which surprised me. And this song started playing instead. And that blew my mind, because that means that YouTube had played the same track 5 or 6 times in a row, then switched to what sounded like the exact same video, but was a different video with the same song in it that didn't have that menacing Satan sound at the end, and then transitioned to this song from Bon Iver, which I was very much like, I was very much surprised that Satan would sing a song to me on his way out. But what's particularly amazing about this song, and I just realized this now as I was listening, because human psychology is weird. I knew I wanted to save the song, and I knew I wanted to know what the song was about sometime, but that was in October, and this is the first time I looked at the lyrics for this song, and the song is about suicide. So that's pretty. Can
I read the lyrics, please?
Yeah.
I have them in front of me here.
Go ahead. Yeah.
And I might also stop to clarify some words that I needed to clarify for myself, just so that they're really clear as we go along. Up with your turret. Aren't we just terrified? Shale, screen your worry from what you won't ever find. And a turret, of course, is a tower. So up in your tower.
It's a gun tower. It's a war tower.
A war tower. So up in your fortress, your tower.
Yeah, where you
aren't we just
defend yourself?
Yes, defending yourself. Aren't we just terrified? And there's a question mark there. It's a question. Shale, which I had to look up, and that is the space in which you're beginning a journey. So as in that I didn't know there was a word for that. Screen your worry from what you won't ever find. And it reminds me of the conversation we just had last week about, what's that paradox? What is the solution that doesn't work for a problem that doesn't exist? That's what that phrase reminds me of. And then it says, don't let it fool you. Don't let it fool you. Down, dancing around, fall to the ground. Now that's coming from the Genius lyrics. There's another one that says, down, sitting around, folds in her gown. Okay, I think Genius has it right. In any case, just looking at the first verse.
Well, and go with like dancing around, what do you say, fall to the ground? And then the next lines are sea and rock below, cocked in undertow, bones, blood, and teeth erode. They will be crashing low, which means someone jumping off a cliff to their demise is what one song meeting is talking about there. So dancing
jumping off of that high turret and falling into the rocks below into their own demise.
Right. And what I gather from that is that if you are going to align yourself with the darkness, and you've got like Saint Michael and the angels of light trying to turn you around, you have to be basically a suicide. It's a suicide mission, because ultimate darkness is complete demise. It's like no light can survive in ultimate darkness. You're basically like in a perpetual suicide cycle, which is what in Dreams May Come, the lowest realm of in Dreams May Come, they experience all the realms of the afterlife, and his wife was a suicide, and so she was in the lowest realm of the afterlife, which is the self-punishing realm that's very hard to get out of, because it's a the last thought of those beings that find themselves in that realm is of self-destruction, of just self-destroying, of killing oneself. So it's like, so that realm is like in a vicious cycle of self-hatred or self-destruction. And this song is like saying, I'm gonna do it. You can't stop me. Like, I won't let you talk me down.
Well, anger is anger. And when we see people who are presenting, and this goes back to the beginning of the conversation, we're talking about trolls. We're talking about people speaking out in anger. We're talking about people who are being the antagonist. That is the pain projected out. And when we're talking about depression and angst that leads one to choose suicide, that is the pain directed inward.
Yeah. And I want to just say, like, What Dreams May Come portrayed suicide that particular way. I don't necessarily believe that. I'd be just as happy to believe that, just like anyone who steps into the afterlife, that there is, angels and light awaiting for you. So, if you've been, if you've been close to someone who committed suicide, I don't think, suicide, I think some Christians believe suicide, casts you into hell or whatever. I don't believe in that. But I do think that the particular suicide bent that this song meeting seems to be, emphasizing is that I'm gonna throw myself into these rocks, and you won't. I won't let you talk me down. Meaning, like, Saint Michael, you can fight me all you want. You can lift me into the light all you want. I'm not gonna let you change my conviction in this direction.
That realm, just one thing, it's like you only ever punish yourself. That's important.
Yeah, right on. Yeah. Like, hell is just self-punishment, and ultimately, and hell can be right on here on earth. There's so many realms of hell right here on earth where people are in cycles of punishment and self-punishment. So you almost don't need anything in the afterlife, considering what some people have to go through in this life. But yeah, there's supposed to be, according to some people, there is a sort of the lowest astral realm is one of self-punishment. and I would regard this, bones, blood, and teeth erode, they will be crashing low. Wings wouldn't help you. I thought that's an incredibly poignant line to have in a song as I'm working with Saint Michael the Archangel and these other angels, and Satan is saying wings wouldn't help you. And,
well, they wouldn't when you choose not to use them. They wouldn't when Satan had wings. They wouldn't when you're surrendering yourself into the pain, into the separation, into the isolation. If you have them, you wouldn't use them.
Yeah. Yeah. And on a lighter note, the very next song that was played was a message from Saint Michael, the Archangel.
Before we move to that, I want to touch on something that is coming up in our Miracles Course thread, and I think it's just to be sensitive to. We have a Miracles Course participant who's a first responder, David. I'm talking to you, who reminded me of the importance of consciously caring, trauma-informed care. So in this moment, I want to, as we're discussing suicide, I also want to note that we have a member in our group who has experienced the loss of being the one left behind. And this participant says that suicide is over for the one who does it.
Yeah.
Everyone who lives suffers for as long as they live without you.
So true.
And that feels like a condemnation of everyone that's alive to a perpetual hell of life without you.
And what that brings up is that Lucifer, who we're talking about in this last song, was the angel of light. And Lucifer committed suicide by rebelling against God. And so the light killed itself. And
Lucifer's name holds within it the light, luz light, lucere light.
Yeah. And so here we have.
So perhaps when we're calling him the light.
Well, and I've been careful about that. That's why I had a little trouble with Uriel, because Uriel is also described as maybe Uriel took up the mantle of what Lucifer was supposed to be in charge of, because Uriel is supposed to be equated with some aspect of the light. But this is the thing. Like, ultimately, I have been accused of what do you call it? Being overly protective of our group in terms of what angels and entities we pray with. But mind you, this dude prayed with Lucifer. I prayed for Lucifer and did an exorcism with, Saint Michael was with me, and we lifted Lucifer into the light. So, what
I'm seeing now is concerned and loving father who says, I just don't want to inflict this on my children, though. I don't want to inflict this on everybody else.
Right. And it's important, because I've been through the racket with Saint Michael the Archangel, and before I did this with Lucifer, I had gone through many, many exorcisms on me, and Saint Michael would take me and say, okay, we're going to put you so you experience the darkest aspects of your shadow, basically, feeling like cast into hell, because that's what hell is. And it's now find your way out to heaven, find your way to heaven. And that happened to me countless times over the year that preceded this, such that I learned how to fight the devil. I learned how to battle Satan and come out victorious. And ultimately, it's very simple. If you ever feel like you're battling demons, You just pray directly to your creator, God the Father, in my inner architecture, if you will, and you just say, "Thy will be done." As soon as you say "Thy will be done" to your creator, like any demonic attack that you're experiencing can't withstand that devotion. Like if you're willing to,
Derek, can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry for interjecting, but I wanted to share with the imagery that's coming up as you're talking about Lucifer and light. And I'm just seeing it's like red light coming from beneath this hot red burning light. And as we're looking at the enemy and we think we're fighting it, that the actual fight is not to fight against it, but to face in the direction that it's moving, which is to face in the source, in the direction of the light, and to keep moving into the light, not to be in opposition to it, but to move with it, to be a leader of it, returning to the source of all light.
I got the red part, then I got distracted by the chat. But I shouldn't. So like, tell me what you said after the red part. Like, because the red, my experience of Lucifer, by the way, has been like that smoldering red lava kind of skeleton, like a skeleton made of that smoldering red lava. That was a definite aspect of Satan that I've experienced during exorcisms and during this process, that there was that kind of
well, we can look at red in many ways, right? And again, this goes back to the meaning that we make from things.
Yep.
To the whole, my camera shorting out and making meaning of that.
Yeah.
And are you looking at the chats again?
a little distracted. I just hope that Phil or John, if there is drama going on in the Zoom chat, just let me know, because I'd love to address it. But if there's not, if we're good. I just want to make sure that we're okay. Because I know, like, somebody brings up a really sensitive core subject like suicide. If there is hurt feelings around that or something, let's just work with it as a group. And if not, if everyone's good, great. So please, just somebody pipe in if we have hurt feelings or something going on in our group.
Yeah.
I think it's okay, but if the person wants to talk about it, then just let us know.
Okay. So you were saying the red light or the red smoldering.
There are many ways that we can look at red.
Yeah.
We can look at what's the meaning of it. And for some of us, it can be associated with Satan, with the darkness, with the evil, but it's also passion. It's also the primal kind of, it's blood. It is so many things ingrained within us that we don't have words for, but we feel them, the blood that courses through our veins.
Yeah.
And that maybe as that's returning into consciousness, it looks like red coming at us. It looks like anger. It looks like passion. It looks like fits of rage. It looks like,
yeah.
But it's just also on its way to the light. And if we're facing the direction of darkness, we're going to see that as an opposing force to us. But if we can turn and recognize that is it's just light returning back to source, passing through a frequency, which has a certain appearance, and we don't worry about that. We can actually turn in the direction of the light and create a vacuum that assists that light in coming back into the source of oneness.
Mm. So one thing that tends to happen when you dance with the devil is the what did we start with? What was the first? What's this YouTube called? The antagonist.
The antagonist.
The antagonist can take hold of people's psyches and start antagonizing ourselves or one another.
The devil made me do it.
Because ultimately the ultimate antagonist is this character we've been talking about. Now we have this beautiful song.
Slugworth.
Yeah. And so this beautiful song, just to wrap it up, seems to basically say, like, your angel wings won't help you, and I won't let you talk me down. And it's just kind of like, but interestingly enough, that was the end of the evening, and there wasn't that final like I'm still here. It was more like, here's a nice song. Still says I'm still here, won't let you talk me down, but it's kind of like, okay, we're done for the night. And then the very next thing that played was this very weird sounding speech. And it was a speech done in remember, St. Michael's in charge of the playlist or whatever's being played. So next thing I know is I have a robot speaking to me in my ears. Like those, when like a text to speech kind of thing going on. So it's a text to speech thing.
You mean like Stephen Hawking's?
Yeah, like Stephen Hawking's. Yeah. But it's like on YouTube, and it's like this, text to speech thing talking at me and saying all these wondrous things that I was like, wow, that's really deep. That's really profound. And that like shed light on this kind of whole situation. And it talked about a golden era, and things of that sort. And, how what this transition that we're going through is all about. And I'm just like, okay, you picked this weird speech for me to listen to. I don't know what this is, but I'm just listening to it. And I was really getting moved by it, oddly. And then at the very end of the speech, it goes, something signing off, Archangel Michael. And it was apparently a channeled Archangel Michael piece. So I thought that was pretty cool.
And now we know Archangel Michael speaks as a robot.
Right.
If he chooses to.
Apparently someone channels Archangel Michael things, and then someone else took that and put robot voice on it and turned it into a YouTube video. And then Archangel Michael went and brought it back to me. So I was like, all right, well, that's pretty wild. So if you're ever looking for messages from Archangel Michael, apparently they're swimming around on YouTube. And he literally used one to like, tell me something. So anyway, that's all wonderful. I think it's prayer time. Unless there's more here, but I feel like we've kind of reached a good conclusion point. Yeah. So
I think so. I'm fully well satisfied in this exploration of dualism, unifying into just oneness. Thank you for indulging.
My pleasure. So what we're going to do now is Chelsea's going to read off the prayers and names, and because we've gone so long, I'm giving Chelsea the guidance to let's just stick with like very succinct name of the soul we're praying for, or name of particular situations such as, the pandemic or whatever. And then as soon as we're done with that and Chelsea says her bit, I will say my bit. We'll lift those souls into the light. And then on the tail end of that particular music track, we will play the track that we've been talking about all night, M83 Wait. And we will lift the souls into the light the way that was done during this night.
I am going to, per what you're saying now, and also per kind of, just so people know, I'm not going to give the context of the situation. If there's a person's name, I'm just going to say the person's name. And if there's a general situation in which there isn't a person's name, then I will say a few more words to give context to that general situation. Right. So if you're listening and you've written in something specific and you just hear your name, know that I'm reading it, and that is like we're all receiving it. That's being called into the light, and that as Garrett is lifting up that final calling, lifting into light, that everything that you've requested is also part of what is being lifted up with you into the light.
Right on. Okay, so let's do that now.
All right.
So we call on the heavenly light, the holy light, Archangel Saint Michael, and the Holy Mother, to guide and protect us as we lift these souls and these situations into the light. May all the angels of the Most High help us lift these souls into the light. Go ahead, Chelsea.
We lift into the light harmony with colleagues at work. L. Brenda Cafaro, Chris Morgan, Louise Kaplan, Janine and her children, Dion, Shakira, Lukey, Bethany, Antonio, and Jonah, John, Adam, Elizabeth, Lech, Richmond, Anna, Magda, and Susan, Radek, and Lucas. We lift these souls as we turn ourselves to the light, to be lifted back into the oneness of the light.
And now, we call on all the angels of the Most High to be with us now, to surround and protect us as we endeavor to do the holy work with each and every one of these souls and all the situations they are confronting. So let us begin. First, begin by choosing any one of these souls and seeing the divine spark within them. And as you witness for this divine spark, that spark grows in brightness, like an ember catching flame. And the spark grows in intensity, and keep witnessing for that light. The more you witness and call on the light in them, the more the light in them grows in strength and answer to your invitation. And now take a step back and regard all of the souls in our prayers. And they are like constellations on the sky, all of their lights shining. And now really witness for the light in each and every one of these souls. Great constellations of light. And the more we witness for their light, the stronger that light becomes. And the light is now growing beyond their being. And the light is reaching out to all of us, and we are all immersed in the great light of of all of these souls and all the angels we have called upon to assist in this effort. And even Satan is invited to be lifted up into the light through the power and protection of Jesus Christ, Saint Michael the Archangel, the Holy Mother, and the Holy Spirit. And now we reach out to all of these souls, and we take hold of them, and we feel the tremendous burden of the darkness as it weighs down on them, pulling them down into a quicksand like gravity. But we have the light on our side. We have the light of heaven with us. We have all the angels of the Most High with us, and we have our conviction for the light with us. And so as we feel these souls sinking into the dark miasma, we say to them, I've got you, brothers. I've got you, sisters. We will not let you drown in the darkness. We will lift you to where you belong, up into the light with all of us. For no soul will be lost. And the light rushes in to be with us. And the archangels rush in to be with us. And all the angels of the Most High swoop down beneath us to help us lift these souls up higher into the light. And the darkness is losing its grip on them, and we are lifting them out of the darkness and towards the light. And it is like a tug of war, but the light is gaining ground. And we are now able to wrap our arms around these souls and hold them as the angels wrap their arms around us. And we all begin ascending from the dark depths to the great light above us. And we are spiraling upwards, higher and higher, and the great light of heaven is beaming down on us brighter and brighter, and the light of heaven is eviscerating all of the darkness that holds these souls down and transubstantiating that darkness into the light. And we are bathed in this light together, and we are lifted in this light together, and we are beginning to lift these souls up above us, up into the arms of heaven, and the arms of heaven are wrapping around these souls, and the hands of Christ take these souls from us, and thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And our work here is complete for a moment in time. We share in the light. But there is still darkness.
If only for a moment.
Yeah.
Isn't it enough? If only for a moment.
Only for a moment. All right. Let us do our final benediction, and then we will go private.
Can I also just, while you're playing the music up for that, just, for anybody who's unfamiliar with benediction, as I previously to this was, because I didn't come up through the Catholic understanding and liturgy, but bene means good, and diction speaks to words. So the final good word is another way that we can hear the final benediction.
Wow.
Benedictus.
Love that. That's wonderful. Ooh, it reminds me to pull up the final benediction. Yeah, I've still yet to memorize the words to the final benediction. So here we go. Okay.
Can you speak the final good words from your heart today, even if it's just from this once? Even if
I will introduce any words given to me during the final benediction. I can riff on it, but also just like we mentioned on our call today, it is sacred to many. So I'm not going to deviate too far from it.
Beautiful.
All right. Holy hosts above,
I call upon thee as a humble servant of Christ. Sanctify our actions in fulfillment of the will of God. Holy angels and hosts above, I call upon thee as a devoted servant of Christ to sanctify our actions in fulfillment of the holy will of God. I call upon the great Archangel Michael, heroic protector of the heavenly light, to open the way for this to be done. I call upon the great Archangel Raphael, master of air and breath and healing, to open the way for this to be done. I call upon the great Archangel Gabriel, master of Holy Communion, to open the way for this to be done. Let the fire of the Holy Spirit now descend, that we may be awakened to the world beyond the life of this earth, and infuse us with the holy light. Let the fire of the Holy Spirit now descend, that these beings may be awakened to the world beyond the life of earth. Let the fire of the Holy Spirit now descend, that all beings may be awakened to the world beyond the life of this earth, and infuse us with the sacred heart of Christ and the power of the Holy Spirit. Lord Jesus Christ, we ask that you receive these children into your arms, that they might find safety from this crisis. Oh Lord Jesus Christ, we ask that you receive us into your arms, that we all might find safety from any crisis. For as you told us, let not your heart be troubled, for in my Father's house are many mansions, and I have prepared this place for you. No, let not your heart be troubled, for in my Father's house are many mansions, and I have prepared a place for you. Yes, I have prepared the holy place for you. So let it be done. Now search your mind, your soul, your heart, for anything that burdens you, any weight on you, anything that you want transfigured in the light, any guilt, any shame, any fear, any suicidal thoughts or self-destructive thoughts, anything that would bring harm to yourself or others, any harm you may have done to yourself and others. We lift all of this up into the hands of the Lord, and we ask for holy redemption of our souls and our lives, such that we are purified. By this sign you are anointed with the grace of the atonement of Jesus Christ, and you are absolved of all past error, and free to take your place in the world he has prepared for us. Yes, by this sign You are anointed with the grace of the atonement of Jesus Christ, and you are absolved of all past error and freed to take your place in the world he has prepared for us, which is the kingdom of heaven. Amen.
Okay. So if an hour and 20 minutes, that's a good long time. Or is it 2 hours and 20 minutes? Did we do 2 hours and 20 minutes? 2 hours
Yes,
and
we did.
22 minutes. Archangel Michael likes his numbers, 222. So we're going to go with that. 2 hours and 22 minutes because we're doing his work, and that's how he rolls. All right. God bless you, and God be with you.